And now we welcome in Brennan of the Cincinnati Enquirer, FC Cincinnati guru and beat writer and all things orange and blue. And, you know, I find myself feeling a little spoiled now because with a 2-2 draw, I think at the beginning of the season, I would have been like, hey, they didn't lose. This is great. I'm disappointed with this outcome. Is that okay to feel disappointed?
You know, I've been asking myself the same questions all weekend, Chris. It is okay to feel disappointed. That is a product of the circumstances of the match. I think FC Cincinnati was leading 2-0. Right before halftime, they were up a man because Columbus had a player ejected after 2 yellow cards. So at that point in the match, FC Cincinnati is fully expected to win. And really, at that point, when the player was ejected for Columbus, that was when it kind of started to go off the rails for Cincinnati. So 2-2 draw, yeah. Before the game, you would definitely take that. The way it played out, though, it left a sour taste in the mouths of a lot of people, for sure.
I know a lot of casual soccer fans will listen to Jaap Stam after the match, and he said, you know, in a lot of ways, when you're playing against 10, it's harder than versus 11. I don't know enough soccer, strategy to say that that's for true.
Sure.
But I guess it played out that way, and why couldn't they finally break through and stop them from scoring or even get another goal?
Yeah, well, you know, I think part of what I just said, I think the pressure that Jaap might have been alluding to in his comments, and I recall them well, Chris, you know, the expectation is of FC Cincinnati to close it out at that point. So the pressure, in a way, even though they have a numerical advantage on the field, the pressure gets ratcheted up several notches. And they played like they were a team under pressure and not the one with the man advantage. You couldn't really look at the game, and unless you counted all 21 players that were on the pitch, you wouldn't have known that FC Cincinnati was the one that had a man advantage. So the players were distributing the ball, passing it around quickly, hastily, in a manner that you just wouldn't expect. And, you know, it's interesting. FC Cincinnati, the way to end that game if you're FC Cincinnati is to just kind of kill the game by passing it around, dink it around. Again, Columbus does not have enough players to get the ball back and defend against you. But Columbus ended up with a little more than 50% of possessing the ball over the course of the 90 minutes. So they really kind of dominated the game, unfortunately, even though they were down a man. It's really interesting. And I think to Jaap's point, that is an example of how it can be harder even though you can be up a man or several men in soccer.
I think it's interesting when you look at teams when you're building, you want those signs of progress. And one of the good signs is when you play your rivals, that's a good measuring stick.
Yeah.
3 of the last 4 matches against Columbus, they've had a decision, 2 draws, 1 win and 1 loss. Is this a sign that, hey, things are starting to go? Because Columbus isn't one of those new teams. Columbus is established. I mean, they're the defending champs.
Yeah, absolutely. The way they've played Columbus, at one point it looked like they were going to win their 2nd straight game against Columbus, and obviously that didn't come to pass. But yeah, they're playing better against Columbus, and Columbus is a great measuring stick because not only is it your rival and therefore the match that you are judged by most harshly, they're just playing better across the board. They're unbeaten in 4 matches for the first time since this club went to MLS. That's, you know, some national commentators and national pundits might look at that and play it down a little bit, smirk about it, the way FC Cincinnati's done it. But the fact of the matter is, again, this is another thing Jaap Stam talked about. We have to, you can be disappointed about the Columbus match, but you have to think about where this team has come from. And where they came from was, you know, historically bad 2019 and 2020 seasons. So are the accomplishments that they are pulling off right now modest? Absolutely. But it's going to be small steps to get this program moving forward. And they are taking the steps right now for the first time. I feel like that we can say they're making the progress. They've already matched their offensive output. They've scored as many goals.
I was going to say they're scoring now, which makes it a lot more fun. It's not 0-0.
In 11 games, they've scored as many as they did in 23 last year in the pandemic-shortened season. They are keeping clean sheets. They're shutting the opponent out. These are things that just weren't happening consistently for FC Cincinnati last year. So you can see it starting to come together. Are they there yet? No, absolutely not. I don't think anyone would argue that, but they are getting there. The progress is there, Chris.
Manager Jaap Stam after the game said it was a little disappointing with the result. We go to his post-game comments now.
You need to learn as a team, as a young team with young players as well, in how to handle a game, how to manage a game. If you want to go there, to not give away these goals, because you understand as well, if you concede just before halftime, it gives you a different feeling as a team as well.
All right, Pat, now that we're looking forward, they got Montreal next, a team that they already beat so far this season. As you said, 4 straight matches that they haven't lost.
Yeah.
Step forward. Where do they go from here?
I think it would be a really it would be a solidifying thing to go to Montreal now, whether that game's in Canada or South Florida. We'll find out in the next couple of days.
They're basically right next to each other, right?
1,600 miles in a border crossing. Small details. But I think it would be very reaffirming for this whole process. After this 5-game stretch coming out of an international break, they are 2-1-2 over that 5-game period. They've looked really good, and now you just want to see it continue again on a consistent level. And even if they were to lose, that's never acceptable. You never plan or expect this, but if you can manage the game, make it look competitive, because again, so many times throughout the history of this organization in 2019, 2020. Not only were they losing, but they were just losing so badly. And that was the demoralizing thing, and it didn't look like there was a way forward. So just if they can go on the road, they've been on the road so much, so early in the season, still 13 home matches left. They've already played 11. They have 13 more home matches, which just speaks to backloaded home schedule. They're going to get opportunities to move up in the standings. I don't know that they are one of the best road teams in the Eastern Conference.
Out of necessity, because they're on it so much.
So, it's a good thing that they're doing well on the road. Otherwise, where would they be right now, right?
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Going to Montreal, that will be a strange place to be. I don't think there will be too many fans. If it's in South Florida, there probably won't be any fans. If it's in Montreal, I don't imagine there'll be many, if any. So it'll be a strange environment, another environment where they're going to have to buckle down. And Montreal's a great team. They're in a playoff position in the East right now. And I think if FC Cincinnati can just duplicate the kind of performance they had against Columbus, that should be more than good enough against Montreal as they are currently constituted.
I know at the beginning of the season we talked realistic expectations for this team. Now that it seems that they've taken a couple steps forward and we've seen more of what they are and what we expect them to be this season, what is a realistic expectation going forward for this team right now?
More questions. You're asking me the same questions I've been asking myself all weekend. I think, look, they are within a shout. If they'd won on Friday night against Columbus, they would have moved up into, I think, 10th place.
That sounds right.
In the Eastern Conference. So they're within a shout of the playoff picture right now and the playoff cut line. 7 teams will qualify in the Eastern Conference this year. So they're already within shouting distance of that. And it's kind of like with the Reds. You play 500 baseball for a long enough portion of the season. If you can go on a run, at that point, at 500, you're going to end up at or in the playoff picture. So I think it's a stretch. I always thought that was going to be a stretch goal for FC Cincinnati to make a legitimate run for a playoff spot and ultimately lock one up. I still don't think that's going to happen, but we're also in a period of the season where FC Cincinnati can make some personnel moves again. We'll see what happens there. But I think it's completely realistic. We know what ownership feels about it. Carl Lindner III's stated expectation is a winning record by the end of the season, so they've got work to do to get to that point. But I think it's completely plausible that FC Cincinnati is competitive and relevant to the playoffs into the business end of the season, when we're talking about September, October, and even into November a little bit. That's when the pressure will be on, and I think they will still be alive and well in the playoff hunt at that point. If they continue on taking steps forward, that's going to be the key.
Boy, how weird it is now to talk about FC Cincinnati, and he said the magic words, playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? Fingers crossed, folks. Fingers crossed. Going to be a fun rest of the season. Pat Brennan, Cincinnati Enquirer. Appreciate you coming on.
Chris, thank you so much for having me.